Gang, ghetto, salute to you. Hope all is well. Oh, ghetto gang, ghetto gang, salute to you. Oh, this is gonna be a fun one. Alright, so I'm not gonna belabor the point. Let's handle some business and we get right into it. It's gonna be great. Let's go.
So, I'm saying, what the fuck? Take a deep breath, man. I mean, take a long, deep breath. Know that if you call a shot, we at war. We at war. I'm there like I've always been. Think about turf, man. It ain't like it was.
I mean, you ain't gotta pay no price of buying no corners.
Since when do we buy corners? We take corners.
Man, you gonna buy one way or another.
Whether it's with the bodies we done lost,
or you're gonna lose. Time in the joint is behind us or ahead of us. I mean, you gonna get some shit in this game, but ain't shit for free. I mean, how many corners do we need? How much money can a nigga make?
More than a nigga can spend.
And then we ain't gonna be around to spend what we done made already.
Shit, I didn't think I was gonna be around this long.
Yeah. Well, we here now.
What's good? What's really good? Y'all already know, folks. Riley Freeman, a.k.a. Young Reezy, doing the Godzilla Big Head All-Star Weekend. Only 8 years old and putting the smackdown on these bitch-ass niggas. Here he is winning the three-point contest, making it rain like Lil Wayne out this motherfucker, without even taking off his warm-ups or his Timbs, nigga. And later, he bust Vince Carter's ass in the slam dunk contest. Look at this right here. Look. Man, I seen it all. Ernie, nigga, back to you.
This Riley Freeman, a very exciting but controversial player. Last year, he became the first person to leave elementary school and go to the NBA when the Miami Heat signed him to a $3 gazillion contract. The biggest in league history.
I don't care how much they pay him, Ernie. This kid is...
At 17 we fell in love, high school sweethearts. Love was so brand new. We took the vows of man and wife, forever for life. I remember how we made our way, a little patience, the times we prayed. I can't imagine that the love is through, feeling the pain, girl, when you lose. But oh, it's too hot, lady. I gotta run for shelter, gotta run for shade. It's too hot, lady. Gotta cool this anger, what a mess we have made.
The number of babies born in the U.S. with syphilis. New CDC data showed more than 3,700 babies born with the disease in 2022. That's 10 times the number born in 2012. The last decade has brought an alarming rise in the number of babies born in the U.S. with syphilis. New CDC data.
No, this is not true. How dare you? How dare you insult these people? How dare you make the assertion that there are people out here who are being so irresponsible that they would allow these things to happen to their children. Ma'am, you just here spreading fake news and pushing agendas. Let's go.
Showed more than 3,700. The last decade has brought an alarming rise in the number of babies born in the U.S. with syphilis. New CDC data showed more than 3,700 babies born with the disease in 2022. That's 10 times the number born in 2012. To explain why we're seeing that increase and what can be done to reverse the trend, we're joined by Dr. John Van Cherry, Chief of the Division of Pediatric Infectious Diseases at LSU Health in Shreveport, Louisiana. Doctor, welcome. So let's start with what is driving that increase? What's behind that those numbers?
So when we see syphilis in babies, which we call congenital syphilis, that's an indicator of the amount of syphilis that's in the community. And that it's an indicator, it's like a canary in a coal mine. When you see babies with syphilis, it means there are lots of adults with syphilis. And that's, we've known that for decades.
Just to hit this home, because many people may not be familiar, what is the potential harm to babies who do have congenital syphilis?
Yeah, the sort of the
Book of Lamentations, chapter 4. Yeah, we got to dig in early. Yup, we gonna do this. The holy stones lie scattered. Oh yeah, we going there today. How the gold has grown dim, how the pure gold is changed. The holy stones lie scattered at every head of the street. The precious sons of Zion work their weight in fine gold, how they are regarded as earthen pots, the work of a potter's hands. Yeah, we're not even gonna play with it. Let's go ahead. We'll go ahead. We'll just do this. Even the sea monsters draw out their breasts they give suck to their young ones. The daughter of my people has become cruel like the ostriches in the wilderness. The tongue of the suckling child cleaveth to the roof of his mouth for thirst. The young child asks bread, and no man breaketh unto them. They that did feed delicately are desolate in the streets. They that were brought up in scarlet embrace dunghills. For the punishment of the iniquity of the daughter of my people is greater than the punishment of the sin of Sodom, that was overthrown as a moment, and no hands stayed on her. My God. Let's go. Their visage is blacker than coal. The hands of the pitiful woman have sodden their own children. They were meat in the destruction of the daughter of my people. Women ate their own young. My God. My God. Nah. No way. How dare you say that?
Is that most
So
babies with congenital syphilis.
The last decade has brought an alarming rise in the number of babies born in the U.S. with syphilis. New CDC data showed more than 3,700 babies born with the disease in 2022. That's 10 times the number born in 2012. To explain why we're seeing that increase and what can be done to reverse the trend, we're joined by Dr. John Van Cherry, Chief of the Division of Pediatric Infectious Diseases at LSU Health in Shreveport, Louisiana. Doctor, welcome. So let's start with what is driving that increase? What's behind that those numbers?
So when we see syphilis in babies, which we call congenital syphilis, that's an indicator of the amount of syphilis that's in the community.
Fair use.
It's an indicator. It's like a canary in a coal mine. When you see babies with syphilis, it means there are lots of adults with syphilis. And
you heard what he said. When you see babies with syphilis, that means there are a lot of adults running around that community with syphilis. Let's go.
And that's, we've known that for decades.
Just to hit this home, because many people may not be familiar, what is the potential harm to babies who do have congenital syphilis?
Yeah, the sort of the good news of this is that most babies with congenital syphilis have very mild or no symptoms at all and no long-term manifestations. Babies can be born prematurely because mom has syphilis during pregnancy. Some babies actually die in utero before they're born because of syphilis, so we call that stillbirth. And babies that are born with symptoms of syphilis have a spectrum from mild to moderate and severe, can include neurologic damage, respiratory damage as well, and long-term complications thereof.
And the amount of syphilis in the community, as you've mentioned, this is a reflection of what we're seeing in babies. So why the dramatic increase there? Put that into context for us.
Yeah, we've been watching this trend for several decades now. Syphilis case counts in the United States are higher than they've been for about 2 decades, almost 3. And what that means is adult cases are 175,000 cases a year or more. And these are really spillover.
Excuse me, sir?
For about 2 decades, almost 3. And what that means is an adult.
Don't you get up here lying, Dr. John Venchiri of Louisiana State University Health Shreveport. You get out here lying, sir. We'll look you up, find out your credentials.
Adult cases are 175,000 cases a year or more.
Fair use.
And these are really spillover to babies who can't fight the disease. And babies get infected.
First of all, they not babies, okay? They are lumps of cells. How dare you? How dare you? First of all, they're not babies. They're clumps of cells. Don't you sit there. They not a baby until after they come out. They just a clump of cells that, listen, I'm out here trying to do my thing. I'm living my life. I'm living my best life. How dare you? How dare you try to disrespect them sisters who are living their best life? Let's keep going.
Obviously, because their moms get syphilis, and if we treat mom during pregnancy, if we can diagnose it during pregnancy and treat, most of those babies are protected and safe and don't have any complications. Part of what we're focusing on, with this new data is that there's a large number that are preventable. 90% by estimate are preventable cases of babies infected with syphilis.
So if so many,
and better testing.
Yeah, if so many are preventable, and we do have tests and there is treatment, why isn't it working?
There are a lot of reasons. Some moms don't start into pregnancy care until very late, or show up at the hospital ready to deliver. So that's a piece of it. In some places, in Louisiana, we test 3 times during pregnancy for women. It's recommended, and they can opt out. But other places don't test as much as we do here. They might only test once or twice during pregnancy. There's a lot of judgment by the physician about, well, my patients are not at risk for whatever reason, and they may not test when they really should be testing. So there are a lot of complex factors involved here.
Just to underscore, we do see some of the same racial disparities here that we see with other maternal health issues, other more broad health issues. If you take a look at the numbers, CDC figures find that Hispanic mothers are 2 times more likely than white mothers to have newborn.
Hold on. How dare you try to suggest that Hispanic mothers are 2 times more likely to have children born with syphilis? I'm not even going to read this fake news. You see it on the screen. You see what it say. The Center for Disease Control and Prevention. Is that even a real place? Like, what are you talking about? Huh? 4 times likely to have children born with syphilis. Four times likely. And you'll say, oh, that's because, well, it's obviously why we obviously know why this is, right? It's because STDs are racist, and they look for women with my complexion to jump on first. That is obviously what is happening here. This is systemic racism being spread by STDs. There's no truth to this.
Syphilis, black mothers 4 times more likely. American Indian and Alaskan Native mothers 9 times more likely.
Wow. My God.
Tell us how this is showing up in your community. What are you seeing in Louisiana?
Right. Where we are in Northwest Louisiana, we evaluate 2 to 3 babies a week for possible congenital syphilis. And that is, again, largely because moms may have early diagnosis or inadequate treatment. Treatment was started too late in pregnancy. And most of those babies fall into that possible category. But we also have some in that probable category. Right now, we have 3 babies in our hospital with congenital syphilis, 2 with no symptoms and 1 with symptoms. And this has been the routine for us for more than a decade in our area.
So the big question is, what does it take to reverse this trend? How do we do that?
So it's going to take a national political will to do something about STIs. They are a scourge in our communities, and we need to just admit that, you know, our system of health in the United States is failing to do its job to curb STIs, sexually transmitted infections broadly, including syphilis. And so what we really need to think about is, how does our military get funded, and think about funding public health the same way. Have the best techniques, the best technologies in advance before threats are on our borders, like COVID. And, you know, I was intimately involved in the COVID pandemic, and we're no better prepared now than we were before the COVID pandemic to deal with threats. This is an endemic threat, not a pandemic threat. And it's not going to go away unless we do something different.
That is Dr. John Van Cherry, Chief of the Division of Pediatric Infectious Diseases at LSU Health in Shreveport, Louisiana. Doctor, thank you. We appreciate your time.
Thank you, Amna.
This was crazy. First of all, I don't appreciate the lies being spread here. You know what I'm saying? I really don't appreciate the lies they trying to spread. What is this report? The CDC, new HIV diagnoses for Black Americans were highest in vulnerable communities. Man, before I even get into this, man, let's take a quick intermission, man. Guys, support the wave. Support the wave. I thank you for supporting the wave. Before we get into this, though, let's take a brief intermission.
Copyright disclaimer under Section 107 of the Copyright Act 1976. Allowance is made for fair use for purposes such as criticism, comment, news reporting, scholarship, and research. Fair use is a use permitted by copyright statute that might otherwise be infringing. Nonprofit, educational, or personal use tips the balance in favor of fair use.
Attention, please. Attention, please. My name is Uncle
Fair use,
Rock.
fair use,
No
fair
relation.
use.
I want to sing y'all a brand new song I just wrote called Don't Trust Them New Niggas Over There. Sing along if you know the words. Don't trust them new niggas over there, leaving they nigga essence in the air. Them happy, nappy-head niggas with the fingers on the trigger. Don't trust them new niggas over there.
Are you sure that vessel stopped this shotgun?
At 17 we fell in love, high school sweethearts. Love was so brand new. We took the vows of man and wife, forever for life. I remember how we made our way, a little patience, the times we prayed. I can't imagine that the love is through, feeling the pain, girl, when you lose. But oh, it's too hot, lady. I gotta run for shelter, gotta run for shade. It's too hot, lady. Gotta cool this anger, what a mess we have made. So long ago, you were my love, oh my love.
Copyright disclaimer under Section 107 of the Copyright Act 1976. Allowance is made for fair use for purposes such as criticism, comment, news reporting, scholarship, and research. Fair use is a use permitted by copyright statute that might otherwise be infringing. Nonprofit, educational, or personal use tips the balance in favor of fair use.
Again, CDC, new HIV diagnoses for Black Americans were highest in vulnerable communities. Key takeaways. Key takeaways. Let's do this right, man. Let's do this. Give my little Aunt Beyonce. Get my little Aunt Beyonce on. New CDC data shows that Black Americans are diagnosed with HIV at a rate that's at about 4 times higher than rates for all other races combined. Damn. Some of the factors that drive higher rates of HIV transmission among Black Americans are lack of access to health care, discrimination, lack of awareness of HIV status, poverty, and stigma. I'm not sure how stigma drives the STD rate either. But okay, the CDC, in partnership with the federal government, has launched an initiative to end the HIV epidemic in 10 years. In the next 10 years, excuse me. Despite progress made in curbing HIV, the human immunodeficiency virus nationwide, these improvements are unequal. A new CDC and prevention CDC, right? A new CDC, right? I'm reading it right. Okay, a new CDC study shows that disparities persist among new HIV diagnoses, with Black Americans being diagnosed at a larger proportion than others. The new data shows that Black Americans are so-called Black Americans are diagnosed with HIV at a rate that's about 4 times higher than rates for all other racial groups combined. Damn. 4 what? Now you see the problem with this is hilarious, because what people want to tell you is that this is a lie, right? This is people playing with numbers. Well, what would be the purpose of them playing with these numbers? Are you saying that they want to stop intercourse in the community so people will not have children? So they're telling us that the STDs are running through the roof, stops from having children? I don't know if it's working though. All right. Anyway, the new data shows that Black Americans are diagnosed with HIV at a rate that's about 4 times higher than the rates for all other races. I can't even say. So the rate of this one group is higher than the rate of all the other groups combined times 4. Let me say that again. The rate of this one group is higher than the rate of all the other groups together times by 4. That's not what it said. Nigga, that's what it says. The new data shows that so-called Black Americans are diagnosed with HIV at a rate that's about 4 times higher than rates for all other racial groups combined. Black adults accounted for 43% of the nation's HIV diagnoses. Golly! And the conversation that's always had is that, everybody don't get tested that should get tested. So, if they accounting for 43% of the diagnoses nationwide, so-called Black Americans, adults, accounting for 43% of the nation's. That's an old study. This study was published. Goddamn Valentine. That's a real interesting day to publish a study about See, they try to slow your roll. You know what I mean? Tell you, put your Tootsie Roll back in your pocket. Put that Tootsie Roll back in your pocket. Put that Tootsie Roll back in your pocket. God damn, Valentine's Day, gunshots. Whew. My Lord, support the movement, gang. Support the movement, support the movement. My God. All right. Additionally, the CDC found that rates of new HIV diagnoses among Black adults were higher in communities with the highest social vulnerability index. The index uses census data to determine the potential negative effects on the community, on the health of communities that are caused by external factors and stressors such as natural or human-induced disasters and disease outbreaks. Human-induced disasters and disease outbreaks. What's driving higher rates? Using data combined from the National HIV Surveillance System and the 2018 CDC SVI, CDC researchers examined 13,807 diagnoses of HIV infection among Black adults in 2018 and the association between HIV infections and social vulnerability. The study found that 52% of the Black adults diagnosed with HIV resided in areas in the country with higher social vulnerability index scores, often residentially segregated communities comprised predominantly of so-called Black people. Andre Daly, MP, MSPH, CDC epidemiologist, the lead study author, told very well. Copper-colored adults in communities with high SVI were 1.5 times more likely to be diagnosed with HIV compared to, I'm assuming that's 1.5. I hope that's not 7.5. That'd be scary. Compared to those living in communities with lower SVI scores. So meaning if you live in the Jesus. Like, and that's so crazy that those, you know what? As much junk as I talk about, I get how there can be a correlation between people who live in low-income communities and people who are facing other diseases and stuff, because the argument could be made that the reason they're living in low-income communities is because they really don't care about themselves or their community. So in that regard, that community of low self-esteem people who don't really care about themselves and or the community and or the problems that come in with living in said community and or plague said community, you can run into a lot of problems for yourself and problems that you can help spread and exacerbate to other people. Meaning, you know, I catch it, you catch it, we catch it, he catch it, she catch it, everybody catch it. It's crazy. It's crazy. But not everybody. I don't mean it in the literal sense, because the studies do clearly show that most sisters are really only having intimacy with like 30% of the brothers. And that's just what it is. You know what I'm saying? Like 70-80% of the sisters are having sex, are being intimate with 30% of the brothers. And they're routinely being intimate with the same brothers because the infection rates show just that there are more sisters infected with the diseases than brothers, meaning that there's some disparity in who is being intimate with who. Just what it is. So to continue on with the article, these factors include racism. Racism is making people infected somehow, some way. It is the racism. You know it. Poverty, lack of access to healthcare, lack of awareness of HIV status or stigma. This history of racial discrimination and residential segregation is correlated with factors associated with higher social vulnerability and higher rates of HIV diagnoses. Segregation limits Black people's access to important resources and affects neighborhood equality. What this means for you, the CDC outlines resources to support people living with HIV. Jump ahead. Addressing high rates of HIV infection. Despite efforts to reduce transmission, HIV continues to disproportionately impact Black Americans and other vulnerable groups. Daskalakis said that the study underscores the continuing and urgent need to address the social determinants that contribute to disparities and deliver better HIV prevention and care to people who need it most. This looks like addressing unstable housing, poverty, limited access to health care, substance use disorder, that I do agree with that, transportation services, HIV stigma, but the stigma around HIV, you would think would make it more likely for people to not want to catch it. I don't understand how they're saying a stigma around HIV makes people more likely to, that part of the game confusing me, makes people more likely to catch HIV. If somebody could explain that part of the game to me, I greatly appreciate it. And I'm not sure how racism quite plays the game. Are you saying if people didn't have to sleep with people from their own race, that they would be less likely to contract it? If they weren't around predominantly people of their own race, they'd be less like. I'm very confused about stigma and racism and poverty. Those I don't get. I mean, I get the poverty to a degree. I mean, but it's such a stretch because it's like so many other layers of the society have to be wrong for the poverty to even make that type of difference in your moral character and fiber. Just his ghetto point of view. Discrimination, again, there's people that's way smarter than me out here. Email me and break down to me how discrimination, racism, and those things affect your situation, because I really don't know. His ghetto point of view at gmail.com. His ghetto point of view at gmail.com. His ghetto point of view at gmail.com, because I'm confused. Are you confused? I'm confused.
All right, Jim, I know you've been trying to get your head around some of the social issues we discussed yesterday. I'm sure you're feeling confused and a little unsure of yourself.
I'm not confused at all, actually, PC Principal.
Okay, well, no, you are confused.
I'm pretty sure you're the one that's confused, but go ahead.
Because you don't grasp the severity of this, and that's why I brought in another young person with disabilities to share his feelings. Thanks for coming in to talk to us, Nathan.
I like apples and bananas.
Me too, bro, me too. Nathan, could you tell Jimmy how you feel when people use the word retarded?
It hurts my feelings because I feel bad.
Are you serious right now?
Fair use, fair use, fair use, fair use, fair use.
You feel like that's a no word, right?
That word makes my heart piss its pants.
Okay, wow, that's pretty heavy. Pretty heavy, huh, Jim?
Do you want to ask him what he means by that, or are you just pandering because you're uncomfortable around disabled people?
I am not uncomfortable! I simply care about a horrible, outdated word that is exclusive, ignores individuality, and equates intellectual disability with being in its spot. I need a spotter. Spot me. Somebody spot me, bro. And it's part of a derogatory hate speech which fosters isolation and loneliness, and being part of a voice to stop the R word is not only right but extremely...
Fair use, fair use. Fair use, fair use, fair use.
I have come here to chew bubblegum and kick ass. And I'm all out of bubblegum.
Copyright disclaimer under Section 107 of the Copyright Act 1976. Allowance is made for fair use for purposes such as criticism, comment, news reporting, scholarship, and research. Fair use is a use permitted by copyright statute that might otherwise be infringing. Nonprofit, educational, or personal use tips the balance in favor of fair use.
Gotta do it, gotta do it, gotta do it. Hope you're enjoying so far. Hope you're enjoying so far. You know the email. You know the email. You know the email. Tap in. Tap in. Support the way. Book of Proverbs. Chapter 5. My son, pay attention to my wisdom. Listen carefully to my wise counsel. Then you will show discernment, and your lips will express what you've learned. For the lips of an immoral woman are as sweet as honey, and her mouth is smoother than oil. But then in the end, she is bitter as poison and dangerous as a double-edged sword. Her feet go down to death. Her steps lead straight to the grave. Her feet go down to death. Her steps lead straight to the grave. I'm gonna start over. I'm gonna start over. My son, pay attention to my wisdom. Listen carefully to my wise counsel. Then you will show discernment, and your lips will express what you learned. For the lips of an immoral woman are as sweet as honey, and a mouth is smoother than oil. But in the end, she is as bitter as poison. 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 As dangerous as a double-edged sword. Her feet go down to death. Her steps lead straight to the grave. For she cares nothing about the path to life. She staggers down a crooked trail and doesn't realize it. Now, my son, listen to me. Never stray from what I'm about to say. Stay away from her. Stay away from her. Now, my sons, listen to me. Never stray from what I am about to say. Stay away from her. My son, stay away from her. Do not go near the door of her house. If you do, you will lose your honor, and you will lose to merciless people all you have achieved. You will lose to merciless people all you have achieved, Kobe. Dr. King. Oh, this list could get long, especially with what's going on now. But we ain't come to talk about that. But this list could get long. Mr. Combs, Mr. Epstein, my God, you will lose to merciless people all you have achieved. Strangers will consume your wealth, and someone else will enjoy the fruit of your labor. In the end, you will groan in anguish when disease consumes your body. In the end, you will groan in anguish when disease consumes your body. You will say, how I hated discipline. If only I had not ignored all the warnings. Oh, why did not listen to my teachers? Why did not pay attention to my instructors? I have come to the brink of utter ruin, and now I must face public disgrace. Drink water from your own well. Share love only with your wife or wives. Why spill the water of your springs in the street? My Lord, being intimate with just anyone, you should reserve yourselves. Let's get this NLT translation is tough. I like it. Let's see what the Orthodox King James. Oh my God. Let strangers be filled with thy wealth, and thy labors be in the house of a stranger. Jail. And thou mourn at the last when thy flesh and thy body are consumed. And say, how have I hated instruction, and my heart despised reproof, and have not obeyed the voice of my teachers, nor inclined mine ear to hear them that instructed me. I was almost in all evil in the midst of the congregation and assembly. Let thy fountains be dispersed abroad in rivers, in rivers of waters in the streets. Let them be only thine own, and not strangers with thee. Let thy fountain be blessed and rejoice with the wife of thy youth. Let her be as loving. Let her be as the loving hind in the pleasant road. Let her breast satisfy thee at all times, and be thou ravished always with her love. And why wilt thou, my son, be ravished with a strange woman and embrace the bosom of a stranger? For the ways of man are before the eyes of the Lord, and he pondereth all his goings. His own iniquities shall take the wicked himself, and he shall be holden with the cords of his sins. He shall die without instruction, and in the greatness of his folly he shall go astray. Now I know that's a little hard for people to understand, so I'll go back to the New Living Translation for some people. Why be captivated, my son, by an immoral woman? Let your wife be a fountain of blessing for you. Rejoice in the wife of your youth. She is a loving deer, a graceful doe. Let her breast satisfy you always. May you always be captivated by her love. Why be captivated, my son, by an immoral woman, or fondle the bosom of a promiscuous woman? For the Lord sees clearly what a man does, examining every path he takes. An evil man is held captive by his own sins. An evil man is held captive by his own sins. They are ropes that catch and hold him. He will die for a lack of self-control. He will be lost because of his great foolishness. Man. Ooh, that is heavy, heavy, heavy. Now I know you're like, yo, Ghetto, you're going real hard right now. You going so hard right now, Ghetto? We have to figure this out. Let's go. If we don't figure this out,
CDC,
we'll figure it out
in
for us.
2021, more than 1.2 million people are living with HIV. While, according to the CDC, in 2021, more than 1.2 million people are living with HIV. While this virus can affect all walks of life, HIV continues to disproportionately impact the LGBTQ+ community at higher rates. This Pride Month, we are spotlighting a local nonprofit working around the clock to put an end to the HIV epidemic in our community. Jeffrey Campbell, CEO of Allies in Hope, formerly known as AIDS Foundation Houston, joins me now to discuss the organization's work. As always, good morning. Welcome back. Always a pleasure chatting with you.
All right. Good morning, Zach. It's good to be here. Thank you.
It is Pride Month, but yes. I do want to mention, although we're spotlighting your work right now, this work continues all year long.
Yeah, the work does continue. I mean, and as we're looking at HIV now, 40 plus years after the first initial diagnoses, we're looking at still a number of new diagnoses in the LGBTQ community, but most of those diagnoses that we see now are among Black and Hispanic individuals, as well as Black men and trans females of both Black
news. All year long.
Yeah, the work does continue. I mean, and as we're looking at HIV now, 40 plus years after the first initial diagnoses, we're looking at still a number of new diagnoses in the LGBTQ community, but most of those diagnoses that we see now are among Black and Hispanic individuals, as well as Black men and trans females of both Black and Hispanic Latino descent.
Talk to us about, I think this is extremely critical for us to decipher the difference between HIV and AIDS.
Yeah, that's a very important question. So HIV is we're looking at still a number of new diagnoses in the LGBTQ community, but most of those diagnoses that we see now are And as we're looking at HIV now, 40 plus years after the first initial diagnoses, we're looking at still a number of new diagnoses in the LGBTQ community, but most of those diagnoses that we see now are among Black and Hispanic individuals. A number of new diagnoses in the LGBTQ community, but most of those diagnoses that we see now are among Black and Hispanic individuals, as well as Black men and trans females of both Black and Hispanic Latino descent.
Talk to us about, I think this is extremely critical for us to decipher the difference between HIV and AIDS.
Yeah, that's a very important question. So HIV is a virus. It is the virus that, when not treated, can morph into what we have known to call AIDS, or now we call it advanced stage HIV. And it is with advanced stage HIV that we see these opportunistic infections, the pneumocystic pneumonias, and different types of cancers that impact the person that's living with the virus.
Think of AIDS as the stage.
AIDS as the stage, yes.
And then, of course, with advancements and progress made, people don't ever have to get to that stage or experience that stage.
You're absolutely right. With medication or medicine and science today, many folks are living virally suppressed, which means their viral load is so low that it can't be detected. And that is also the place that an individual living with HIV cannot transfer the virus or transmit the virus to someone else through sex.
Jeffrey, U equals U.
Yes.
What does that stand for?
Texas doctors are concerned about the rising number of babies born with syphilis.
Fair
Now they
use.
want pregnant women to know what to do to prevent their babies from getting the disease. Fox 4's Sean Rabb reports.
Pregnant women are on the state health department's radar after a 5-year continued increase in the number of babies born with the sexually transmitted disease, syphilis.
Texas doctors are concerned about the rising number of babies born with syphilis. Now they want pregnant women to know what to do to prevent their babies from getting the disease. Fox 4's Sean Rabb reports.
Pregnant women are on the state health department's radar after a 5-year continued increase in the number of babies born with the sexually transmitted disease, syphilis.
State Health Department noted, I think, between 2017 and 2022, that there was like a 400% increase in the number of cases of congenital syphilis. We locally have definitely seen those same significant increases in numbers. And it's also been seen nationally.
This past Friday, a summit about congenital syphilis, doctors meeting in Houston.
The spike in congenital syphilis is probably a multifold problem. One is that syphilis had actually almost completely gone away and had become much more rare. And so because of that, a lot of physicians and providers have not been testing for it as much.
Starting in 2019, state law changed, requiring 3 tests for syphilis during pregnancy. The first, at the first prenatal visit, then during the 3rd trimester, and at delivery.
We need your help to ensure that Texas women receive these screenings.
Women who are not being told about the testing should ask. And new technology made testing better.
And so we probably also picked up on a bunch of cases that we didn't know about prior.
For infectious disease specialist Dr. Emma Dishner, testing is key.
These women do not become impregnated by themselves usually. And so I think testing their partners and testing other sexually active men is also an important part of this.
The infection is treatable with a shot of penicillin. At one time, a shortage in the supply chain, but now readily available, and can prevent debilitating illnesses in newborns or even worse.
If it's untreated, it can be 40% fatality rate among the babies that are born.
Sean Rabb, Fox 4 News.
I'm gonna keep going, family. I'm gonna jump down to sources very well. Health uses only high-quality sources, including peer-reviewed studies, to support the facts within our articles. Read our editorial process to learn more about how we fact-check and keep our content accurate, reliable, and trustworthy. These are the sources for the article, guys. Why we out here playing, man? Y'all can disagree all you want. Y'all can disagree all you want. There's a very serious problem going on in our community, and we're trying to pretend like it doesn't exist for the sake of not hurting people's feelings. What is not hurting people's feelings have to do with making sure that people are getting the right type of health care that they need, and people are not putting themselves or their children at risk. Somebody hit me
New
on my
numbers
email
from
and let
the
me know.
CDC show a surge of sexually transmitted infections in
Fair
the United
use.
States with no signs of slowing. In 2021, there were 2.5 million cases of chlamydia, gonorrhea, and syphilis. New numbers from the CDC show a surge of sexually transmitted infections in the United States with no signs of slowing. In 2021, there were 2.5 million cases of chlamydia, gonorrhea, and syphilis. The most significant rise was in syphilis and congenital syphilis, which occurs when mothers with the infection pass it along to their babies during pregnancy. From 2020 to 2021, cases of each went up 32%. Ali Rogan has more on this concerning trend.
Over the past decade, there
gonorrhea, and syphilis.
Y'all heard that, man.
New numbers from the CDC show a surge of sexually transmitted infections in the United States with no signs of slowing. In 2021, there were 2.5 million cases of chlamydia, gonorrhea, and syphilis. The most significant rise was in syphilis and congenital syphilis, which occurs when mothers with the infection pass it along to their babies during pregnancy. From 2020 to 2021, cases of each went up 32%. Ali Rogan has more on this.
Now you see, this is when you will get smart people who will say stuff like, oh, well, ghetto, if it's only 2 million cases, but it's like 200 million people in the country, then what does that matter? Now you see, that's that smart, that's when you're so smart you're stupid. Because if it's 200 million people in the country and 2 million of them are carrying this disease, and those are the ones we know have been checked out, how many more are that have not been checked out? That's such a small percentage, though. You're bugging over nothing. It's like 1%. Y'all are crazy.
Concerning trend.
Over the past decade, there's been a
New
Fair
numbers
use.
from the CDC show a surge of sexually transmitted infections in the United States with no signs of slowing.
NBCnews.com. Mississippi hit by a 900% increase in newborns treated for syphilis. Because again, it's not hitting everywhere evenly. There are parts of the country which are being drastically affected by this, and groups that are being disproportionately affected by this. Do we have to even play games like we don't understand what groups I'm talking about? We gotta play like we don't understand where I'm going with this? Huh? Yeah, alright. Mississippi hit by 900% increase in newborns treated for syphilis. 900%, gang? This seems like something that should have happened 100 years ago, not last year. Because maybe 100 years ago they'd have been able to fix the problem. The state's former health officer said, congenital syphilis occurs when the infection is passed from a mother to her child while she's pregnant. So in Mississippi alone, there was a 900% increase in newborns being treated. This is an article from February 11th, 2023. Alright then. The number of babies in Mississippi being treated for congenital syphilis has jumped more than 900% over 5 years, uprooting the progress the nation's poorest state has made in nearly quashing what experts say is an avoidable public health crisis, the rise in cases that place newborns at further risk of life-threatening harm. In a state that's already home to the nation's worst infant mortality rate. Dang. In 2021, 102 newborns in Mississippi were treated for STDs, up from 10%. Up from 10 in 2016, according to an analysis of hospital billing data shared by Dr. Thomas Dobbs, the medical director for the Mississippi State Department of Health Crossroads Clinic in Jackson, which focuses on sexually transmitted infections. Dobbs, the state's former health officer, said he's spoken with healthcare providers who are absolutely horrified that babies are being born with disease and in rare instances dying from it. This seems like something that should have happened 100 years ago, not last year, said Dobbs, who was also the dean of John D. Bauer School of Population Health at the University of Mississippi. There's really kind of a shock. Of course, in this quote-unquote modern society with our quote-unquote modern medicines and our quote-unquote healthy lifestyle, you have all of these children dying from avoidable diseases. Mississippi State Department of Health does not formally track congenital syphilis deaths, but said there was at least one baby who died in 2021. Congenital syphilis occurs when infection is passed from mother to her child while she is pregnant. If untreated, a pregnant woman with syphilis has an 80% chance of passing it to her baby. My God. Babies infected with syphilis may not initially show symptoms. So how many babies actually do have it? But for those who are not treated within 3 months of birth, complications can be severe. Syphilis can damage a baby's organs. The disease can pummel a child's nervous system and imperil their vision and hearing. In the gravest cases, newborns die. Is that worth having fun? Is that worth YOLO, it's my body, it's my choice? Is that worth all of that? I'm just asking questions because I don't know. Because I know I'm out of touch. 2021 figures Dobbs shared are the latest indicator of a growing congenital syphilis problem in Mississippi and nationwide. Preliminary data from the Center for Disease Control and Prevention shows that cases across the U.S. have more than doubled from 941 in 2017 to at least 2,677 in 2021. In Mississippi, the Department of Health has not released its final 2021 numbers, which are based on clinicians reporting cases directly to the state. But the preliminary numbers mirror the increase Dobbs found based on insurance billings, said Dr. Paul Byers, the state's epidemiologist. The resurgence also shows the state's racial disparities can be present from the first day of life. In 2020, black newborns accounted for 70% of the state's congenital syphilis cases, despite making up 42% of the state's live births. So less than half of the live births are copper-colored children, but they're 70% of the congenital syphilis cases. We don't see a problem with this? Of course we don't. Gang, we're going to pause right there. We're going to come back with part 2 of this. We just getting started. You know how to tap in with me. This is going to get rough. But, as I always say, thank you. Come again.
Thank you for coming. I'll see you in hell.
Back with part 2 shortly, gang. Peace.